Aloha and welcome to the Empowered Empath podcast. My name is Jennifer O'Neill,
And I'm Michelle Schneider.
and we are going to talk about all things spiritually lifestyle related. I don't think that's the way that you say spiritually lifestyle related. I don't think that's a word. But spiritual lifestyle related, talking about all things that have to do
Related
with
to our spiritual lifestyle.
Yes, there we go. So, we have a really interesting subject to talk to you about, but before that, you want to talk about the
Yeah, absolutely. If you find this information helpful, or even if it sparks, questions, be sure to give the video a like, and you can always leave your comments down below if you have more questions related to this topic or any other topic that you want us to discuss in the future. We are always happy to entertain whatever you send us our way. And just make sure, you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything.
Yeah, we are always open to discussing other topics for sure. So that was a good point. And we do look at the likes and all of that to see how much you're enjoying the podcast. So, yes, absolutely make sure you do those things. I wanted to talk about connecting with spirit and or your spiritual communication because this subject has been coming up quite a bit lately with the transitional energy, people shifting their lifestyle or their spiritual lifestyle or veering towards a spiritual lifestyle instead of living more of a 3D life. You are moving towards a spiritual lifestyle. And to be clear, a spiritual lifestyle, in my opinion, and I'm sure yours, absolutely encompasses both sides living in the physical realm, but also being able to connect in with the spiritual realm as well and using the two as a yin yang balance with your spiritual body and your physical body, spiritual senses, physical senses. There's two aspects to us all the time. And that's why I think that this subject is really important, especially with the transitional energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I was definitely going to say there needs to be a balance because you can't just live all
Mhm.
in on one direction because you're not really going to function, I don't think, well, if you do. I mean, maybe
I've
you will, but
I've known people to try to do both. So, I mean, clearly, we all know people who just want to focus primarily in the physical. That's in front of your face. It's very visual, it's everywhere. We are reminded about it over and over and over again. So, that's pretty much a given. You're trained to not connect in with your spiritual senses because people don't understand it. They don't have the knowledge. They don't know what to do with it. And it scares people. But I do know people in the healing industry that that's all they talk about. And to tell you the truth, I think that freaks people out. The people who are wanting to develop, we all know people who go into such a woo woo side of spirituality that all they want to do is talk about everything in spiritual terms. That whether it's from your zodiac sign to the energy of the room and clearing all the stuff and you know what relationship compatibilities you have because of past life connections or twin flames or twin souls. We don't want to talk about that all the time. Like, first of all, that's exhausting, right?
yes.
Second of all, we do live in a physical world. So I don't even want to talk about that all the time. Swear to God, like that is not something I want to talk about constantly. I like to talk about what I'm watching on Netflix, what just came out on Apple TV, what happened in my grandbaby's football game, except for maybe not that so much. But, I like to have other subjects. And I think that people forget about that. And then they go really extreme when they're newly focused within the spiritual realm. Maybe that's my issue though, because I never came out of the spiritual realm. It's always been a part of my life since I was born, and I've been in it professionally for so long. That might be the difference, but I do feel that scares people away from wanting to learn more because they feel like, well, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like where everything's about like pulling cards or what the energy is going to be like there, or if your sign is this. I don't know. I feel like
Well, I definitely think that it matters, like, who you're talking well, with at least me and from my perspective, it's like, I'm not just going to, meet a stranger and start talking about this stuff. For me, it's about what feels safe. If I know that I've got a friend that is super into the same things that I am, and we kinda speak the same language, then, yeah, we're totally gonna talk about that stuff. But then when it
Right.
comes to whether, a family member or a coworker, I'm like, "Yeah, we're not gonna go down that avenue."
Right, but some people do.
Yes.
And the reason I'm kind of on this is because you don't have to talk about it all the time. You can still develop your senses. You can utilize your senses. You can connect in with spirit. You can be wholly spiritual. Like you can be completely developed and you don't have to have the woo woo factor with it. And I know that a lot of people have been drawn to my classes and to me because I don't have that thing going on. I don't think so. Nobody's told me that, but maybe they're afraid to. I don't know. But I don't think so. And it's not something that I view as spirituality is my identity necessarily
It's a
in that
part of
way.
who you
Just like
are.
I don't think, well, I'm human. I don't know. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm just me and I have a human body, a spiritual body, and then I don't separate it, I
Yeah,
guess.
well, I would say it's a part of who you are, but it's not
Yeah.
all that you are.
Right, exactly. But I do feel like it scares people away, and that's kind of a bummer because I think um, people would benefit from their, learning about their spiritual senses greatly. It leads towards happiness. The whole point and the purpose is not to get you to do readings or to heal somebody. You can, and that absolutely can lead you down that path. But I feel like being spiritual is being guided with your spiritual guidance system. And that spiritual guidance system has more of a compass when it comes to happiness, success, love, really great relationships, great ways to live your life as far as career goes. It has a very good compass when it comes to pointing you towards alignment, health, good health, and wealth, and all of those things. I feel like when you get hung up on your brain and the societal knowledge and all that kind of stuff, I feel like your compass is broken and you really don't know which way happiness is, and you accept discord as far as your spiritual alignment goes. You just accept being off track as what everybody's doing, and that's not really true.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Speaking along that subject line, though, I've noticed that a lot of people try to connect in with their spiritual self backwards. They don't do it properly, and I think this comes to the whole how we're trained to interact with people and how we're trained in the spirit realm because of what you said earlier about, when you meet somebody, you typically want a face and a person that you talk to. And so I've noticed that when I'm working with students, a lot of times they want a name and face in the spiritual realm to talk to. And I find that very interesting. Yet you made a very good point on that's usually how we form relationships in uh, the real 3D world, which
Yeah.
would be what people call the real world, versus how it works in the spirit realm. And so, while if you're fully developed, you absolutely can develop, knowing people's names or who you're working with and that sort of thing, but that's going to take time. So, I think it's really important for people who would like to connect in with the spiritual side of themselves to start playing around with the information that they're receiving first, noticing the signs, the synchronicities, spirit journaling, like I was talking about. But allowing the information to come through is your first largest hurdle without being adamant about knowing where that information's coming from. Because when we're dealing with the spirit realm, we're dealing with many ways that you receive information. Might be Akashic records, might be what I call the spiritual news wire, because there is a frequency that holds a lot of information out there that you can download and receive information on experiences, events, even people. And it doesn't have to be transferred from another person or a council member or a guide or anything of that nature. So I guess that would be one of the things that I think that people don't realize is there's a lot of ways that you can receive these blocks of information or these downloads, and it doesn't always pertain to a specific person, not always. And many times it actually can pertain to more than one person if you're working with a council. And then I've had it people go so far as to go, but I want to know who my counsel is. A lot of councils are made up of energetic beings and energetic bodies, but they don't use an identity the same way that a person uses a driver's license and a social security card.
Yeah.
So there's a difference when you're dealing with energy in the spirit realm than dealing with the physical realm, where we need a lot of proof and a lot of visuals and things of that nature, even when it comes to your own identity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I had mentioned this earlier, but I was, and before we hopped on, I was like, it's a very human thing. I think we get obsessed with labels. We want to
Right.
categorize everything. We want to put a name on it. We want to identify it the best way that we know how. But
Hmm.
we really have to understand that the information is the most important thing, not who we're talking to.
Right. Especially when you're dealing with the spirit realm. Now, to be fair, in the physical world, that is very important to know where you're getting that information from. That is very important because of the amount of poor information that can be circulated, right?
Yeah.
But in the spiritual realm, when you're receiving information, your chances of receiving poor information is really, really slim, because in the spirit realm, it's more factual stuff, more recorded, more Akashic records, things of that nature. And where the problem is in the translation. So it's not necessarily that you have to worry about this spirit channel or that spirit channel or that spiritual person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the only thing that I feel like people should definitely watch for is negative messages.
I was just thinking about that.
Were you? Was it like I was psychic? Did I just read your mind right then?
Well, because I was thinking about with that negativity, I mean, I would you agree that it's all about intent? Like, if you are setting out to communicate and receive messages, don't you think you should the intent that you put out, you should I don't know, I don't like the word protection so much, but at least kind of like stating who you want to connect to, not specifically, but what type of
Yeah, I
energy.
think that at the beginning, that is a very good and smart thing to do, is to talk to whoever the powers that be and be like, I am only allowing myself to connect in with the highest vibrational frequency, positive intentions, positive energy, anything of low frequency, any um, negativity is not allowed to connect with me. And you sort of set some boundaries that way,
I think
because
it's very important though, and I'll give a little insight, because when I was first, playing around with some tools, I was playing with a pendulum, I was trying to learn how to utilize it, and I did not set proper intentions,
mm,
and I, I don't wanna say, like, opened a portal or an
you
entity
opened
came
a
in.
spirit door you didn't want to go into.
Yeah, and
Mm,
what came through wasn't human. I don't believe it to be super negative. The only reason I knew that it had come through was because my dog at the time was doing things I had never seen him do before,
mm,
and it
yeah.
was freaking me out to the point where I got to be like, do I need to sell my house? Like, I was not sleeping at night because he was pounding on cabinet doors at 2:30 in the morning. It was crazy stuff, and like he could definitely see something that I couldn't. And so I learned very quickly
By
how
he was pounding on doors, was it the spirit or the dog?
the dog was. He was
Oh,
trying
okay.
to find a place to hide. So he would go
Okay.
into my bathroom. He would hide 24/7. He would pound on the cabinet doors trying to attempt to get them to open up because he was looking for a hiding spot.
Okay, now to be fair, before we freak everybody out who might want to try to connect with spirit,
Sorry, this took a turn.
Yeah. Um, the animals, when they do sense a spirit that is a stranger to the household or to the room. So, for instance, they have seen a loved one that have passed over, but normally they know who that person is, or maybe the spirit's been there the whole time you've lived in the house, that sort of thing. They will not have such a reaction. But this is a good subject because people don't realize that animals will react to spirit in spirit form if they're strangers, the same way a lot of times they will react to a stranger coming into your house, like a real stranger, like a
Yeah.
physical stranger. And that's good to know because every time your dog is barking or behaving weirdly or sketched out, it doesn't always mean that that's a bad spirit. It just means it's one that they're not used to recognizing. It's not there often, or it just started showing up. Now, that could mean when you're dealing with stuff that there's some negativity there, but typically if an animal is reacting that way, do not try to sell your house. Like that's where
No, I mean, that was extreme.
I
I'm
know.
fine with it now, obviously, because I learned a lot in the process, but
Mhm.
it was to the point where I wasn't able to sleep at during the night for several nights in a
Well, yeah,
row.
because that's typically going to freak most people out.
Yeah.
But yes, animals will behave the same way. Now, they do know that there's something different about them, and that's why they're a little bit meeker sometimes. Like they'll like maybe look up and sort of cower because they can tell if something's, levitating off the ground, that that's not normal in this human life form that or pet life form they've taken on. That being said, um, they will react a lot of times like they react when they see a stranger, which makes sense, right? They
Yeah.
don't know that energy, they don't know that presence at that moment in time. Now, if the energy continues to show up, they might get used to it, or they might still be like, you know what, you're still coming in my house, like get out, you know? So there's that factor. Getting back to where we were, that did
Sorry.
take a funny side turn. But yes, I think that setting the intention to only speak with the highest vibration, the best intention, positivity. Always think white light, divine, God, whatever, whoever you're connected with that you feel like is in a higher spiritual realm, then you can use that energy and say, I would only like to connect with this energy sent from, or is a part of, or, some type of divine energy. So I think that that's really good. It would be your first step to learning how to set boundaries with your spirit communication. Because if you did start connecting with spirits, and this is why people don't like Ouija boards, or spiritual people don't like other people just playing around with them, because if you don't set an intention and you just start opening up the floodgates, and I've talked about this before, it's literally like just opening the front door to your house
Yeah.
and then going, whoever wants to wander in, just wander in. Like for real, it's just like anybody can come, because you haven't put any rules on your door saying, okay, if I don't know you, you can't come in. you know if you have bad intentions and you want to like party or something, or wreck my house, then you can't come in. Like they understand the boundaries that you set, and there's a reason that you can set these boundaries with spirit. So you don't want to open the front door to your house. You do want to have some rules when
Yeah.
you open the door. So there's that. But people do concentrate too much on who it is. Who am I talking with? And like I said before, we're not always talking with a person. You're not always receiving information from a person. It could be tuning into the Akashic records. It could be tuning into the spirit wire. It could be working with a council. It could be working with angels. It could be working with other types of divine energy. And it could even be working with, which we need to do a podcast on this soon, extraterrestrial energy. And
Yeah.
that's going to be a fun podcast to be doing. So we need to remember to do that. But it can be all types of energy where information is held, because information is held in energy. And that energy doesn't always have to take on a humanistic type form or spirit form.
Well, isn't
Energy is,
everything energy technically?
yes,
So there's information in literally everything.
yes. This is also why you can receive information when you hold objects. If you're clairtangent, that
They call that
energy.
psychometry.
Well, yeah, that's another word for it too, and it's clairtangent. Or if you are around ruins or different ancient buildings, houses, ancient structures, old structures. That's why I can't stand pawn shops. Nothing against pawn shops on a personal brain level, but energetically, it is like absolute chaos for me. I go in there, the amount of stories, the amount of intentions, the amount of stuff you can feel.
Well,
And
yeah, just think
typically,
about the reasons why people are giving that away, probably to help themselves out of a desperate situation.
exactly, and or they stole it
Yeah.
and they're whatever it is. It doesn't matter if they pawned it themselves or stole it. It's never feel good energy. I cannot be in them. I'll sit outside. My husband doesn't even ask me anymore. He used to a long time ago, and now it's just like, yeah, he just goes by himself when he loves that kind of stuff. But that's also why you would get a different vibe off that than you would if you went to like a rummage sale or something. Those items at a rummage sale are typically, being sold without such an intention behind it. So, yes, all energy carries information, and you don't want to filter through, especially when you're learning, where that information is coming from, because it's not the point. The point is to allow the process to happen. That's where the training begins. How to not let your brain interfere, how to not filter the information that's coming through, unless you're receiving negative messages, which is what we were just talking about, with the house thing. If you are receiving negative messages, that you need to throw out the window. I would do like a clearing meditation. The angel clearing meditation is really good for that I have on my website on thekeystothespiritworld.com. Everybody loves that meditation. I use it all the time. But that would be a good place to start. And or that's also a good place to start if you want to try to consciously tune into information. Like if you need a meditation, then you want to calm the brain and allow information to come through. That's a good one to start with. But negative, um, I don't know, voices, telepathic information, blocks of information, that anything that feels negative, just throw that out the window, get rid of it, and do a clearing meditation, start over. We don't want to be working with that. And then as you develop your skill, as you learn to remove your mind blocks, any human blocks that you put in your way that help bottleneck the process so that you're not receiving it fully. Once you start to really learn to receive the information, receive, allow, and just let it come through, then what happens is your frequency raises. And when your frequency raises, you get a clearer image of things. And that means you might be able to take that one step further, or you will be able to eventually, if you continue to raise your vibrational frequency, to a place that you can gain more clarity or more information on who you're working with and that sort of thing. It is interesting to me, though, how much weight that people put on that. But what you said just makes total sense. Here, that's very important. There, it is not. We need to work on the process of just receiving it. That's like skipping a whole step. If you concentrate fully on that, you're going to censor yourself. You're not going to allow it to come through, because you're going to keep reaching and reaching for an identity.
Yeah.
And that is a tough thing to do. You need to develop to a certain point before you can grab that identity, usually. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So that would be why people do it backwards. You will want to receive that information. And then when it comes to things like pet communication, it's the same type of thing. When it comes to things like mediumship, it's the same type of thing. When it comes to channeling, it's the same type of thing. So when it comes to all of the modalities that you might be interested in, even healing work, focus on developing the skill first, the healing, moving energy, the connecting with spirits, start there. And then you can usually utilize that as your way to receive who you're working with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So hopefully that has covered any questions along the channeling, mediumship, how to connect with spirits. And I think that that's really all. Do you have anything to add to that?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and I'll let you finish with
Yeah, absolutely. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't. And we are always welcoming your comments again. So, whatever questions you have that you would like to ask or any topics that you would like for us to talk about, we are all ears.
Yes. All right. Until next time, have the most amazing day. Aloha.
Bye.
Bye.